this game here. It's going to be between Daniele Spuntarelli and Federico Costas here. So going to be Uruguay versus Italy. We can see how they're doing at the moment. It seems like Italy are putting in a very dominant performance with that 4-0 record at the moment. Just need one more win to secure the win for this week, and have at least secured the draw here.
Yeah, and Italy is in that really tough group too with Spain, so you have to imagine that they're really trying to put on a really a dominating performance this very first week to show that group that, we're going to be trying to move forward as best as we can. Uruguay, Federico Costas is a great player. They know that they can't lose any more games this week. They really need to pull that draw just to keep themselves in the running, because I know how difficult that group has been. One of the ones that I saw in the draft was definitely a little bit horrifying to think about.
Yeah, it's Italy, one of the more stronger teams coming out from Europe in most of these formats that we've had. So definitely a strong opponent for Uruguay here, as we can see with that 4-0 record. So Uruguay have their work cut out to be able to secure that draw. Definitely still possible. And Federico is hopefully going to be getting the start of that comeback here. We can see some quite cool picks coming out from both of the players here. The players that have already played as well. And now we can move on to Uruguay's Federico Costas here, going to be trying to keep that draw, the hopes for the draw alive here. Going to be running that Zacian, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Regieleki, Landorus Incarnate, and Urshifu.
Yeah, I think Lou is probably a little bit jealous that she's not commentating this one because of how much she loves Regieleki, but definitely exciting to see Landorus Incarnate, one of those Pokemon from Series 10 that's shown a lot more popularity, and, that sheer force ability is great instead of, Landorus Therian with that Intimidate. Zacian, of course, one of the Pokemon that is new really to Series 10, and it's really starting to pick up steam with that awesome typing, that Fire, Water, Grass core from Incineroar, Urshifu, and Rillaboom. Something that I think we'll see on almost every single team. It's so dominant right now. It gives so much pressure. But the Regieleki I absolutely love. I definitely agree with Lou that I think it's a really fun Pokemon to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And so it's just going to be some very tried and true Pokemon coming out from Federico's side. We all know what these Pokemon can do. And it's the same here for Daniele's team. Going to be running that Xerneas. So going to be having that Zacian versus the Xerneas here. But you've got 3 fire types coming out from Daniele's side of the field to try and deal with that Incineroar and Entei and the Torkoal.
Yeah, definitely a bit more of a slower mode possibly on that team with this Torkoal here. Another way to set that Sun without the Groudon. Of course, no Wheezing this game, so no worry about any neutralizing gas here. Xerneas Incineroar is a core that I have seen for a long time now. It is very tried and true, that fake out pressure, but now having the Rillaboom as well, getting that extra priority move with Grassy Glide and that extra fake out has been really helpful. Rillaboom, one of those Pokemon that took off the moment that its hidden ability was released into the game. Indeedee is something that I also am really interested to see. Expanding Force is something that can be really great at putting on a lot of pressure, taking a lot of just, meaty hits. Nothing that can really be incredibly strong, but definitely meaty, breaking down the opponent's teams, getting them into lower and lower health. And we did see that Entei last game too, oftentimes running that Scarf, able to do a ton of damage, a little bit tougher to handle as well. Especially, there's no Kyogre on the opponent's team, so I think that makes Daniele a little bit happier, not worrying about any rain or any water type moves from a really strong Pokemon like Kyogre with that Origin Pulse or that Water Spout.
Yeah, you get to make use of that Choice Scarf really well by getting the Drought going with the Torkoal, so you can definitely get the knockout on the Zacian, so you can start jumping into the match here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really interested to see exactly what the lead is going to be here. Landorus having Sheer Force, it's been doing a lot more, physical pressure using those special type attacks. Sorry, not physical, that's special pressure using special type attacks here. Something that I think is going to be interesting too, that Urshifu I think is going to be so important for this game, but they have to work around that drought. Because we saw last game too how much Urshifu really struggles when the sun gets up, and it really has to kind of work around it. It wants to use those Surging Strikes here, but also something I see that might be really interesting is that this is that Mystic Water Urshifu, which means it could be pretty bulky, Jamie.
Yeah, we've been seeing bulky Urshifu pick up a lot in this Series 10. It's usually been run with a Focus Sash in almost all of the series before, and now it's picking up in popularity with that. A lot more bulk on the Urshifu as well, and definitely does need to worry about the droughts. You probably do want to be bringing the Urshifu because you've got to deal with all those fire types that are going to be threatening your Zacian, but then the Torkoal, if it just gets onto the field, sets up that drought. So that's going to be putting a stop to those the Surging Strikes, doing as much damage here. So we have to see if the Xerneas is able to get up that Geomancy as well. If you get the Geomancy up when you've still got your Fire-type Pokemon supporting you, you may be able to break through the Zacian, but if you don't get that Geomancy, it's going to be a bit more awkward since the Zacian can just outspeed and knock you out in one shot.
Yeah, the Xerneas and Incineroar lead here, one of the most common leads I think I've seen over the course of my VGC career, and Landorus and Urshifu. So the Landorus Incarnate, like we said, coming out with the Urshifu. Some great fake out pressure though from that Xerneas, from the Xerneas Incineroar side. Going to possibly make it so they're going to try and set up that Geomancy early, get a ton of damage off. Urshifu can do a great amount of damage here to the Xerneas, but it's going to be tough. Can't get any really strong one-hit knockouts.
Yeah, you pretty much guaranteed your Geomancy if you go for a fake out into either Pokemon, but if you fake out the Urshifu, it's going to be almost certainly a very strong Sludge Bomb coming the Xerneas' way. And if you fake out the Landorus, Surging Strikes is still going to do a huge amount of damage, whether that is into the Incineroar just to pick up that likely knockout there, or just get the Xerneas into range of another attack that Federico would want to go for. So we'll have to see where the fake out is going. It is going to be putting a stop to that Landorus this turn.
Yeah, as the Incineroars fake out into the Landorus. Geomancy here coming out, though, going to obviously get that one turn from that Power Herb. Great move, obviously something that we've seen for years. It's one of those things that once you get your Xerneas set up, it's really, really hard to stop. And if you get it set up early and you get that sweep going, you can put yourself in a really great position momentum-wise, boosting all of those stats, making it so that next turn, maybe he could go for a Dazzling Gleam. The Surging Strikes, though, from that Urshifu, that is going to go into the Xerneas slot, so that's still going to do a pretty decent chunk of damage with all of those critical hits, ignoring all those boosts from the Geomancy here. Isn't even going to get it down to under 50%, though, so it is going to need at least maybe 2 more of those, depending on how the damage kind of deals this time.
Yeah, and it's because the Urshifu don't commonly run that Focus Sash anymore. It's just going to be in range of the Dazzling Gleam at this point. The Landorus has taken some Fake Out chip as well, so could be getting close to in range of that Dazzling Gleam as well. And Urshifu does not want to be taking that, is going to be switching into that Incineroar.
Yeah, Federico's Incineroar coming out here, getting a little bit, that fire typing definitely helps if it's taking something like a Dazzling Gleam, but it does have that dark typing, like you've said in the past, Jamie, with you running that Torracat. The Incineroar, though, switching out on Daniele's side, going to bring in the Indeedee, so something that I actually really like here. No fake out pressure next turn because of that Psychic Terrain. Definitely going to be a little bit tougher. It may not want to take something like a knockoff here if that Incineroar may be running something like that. The Landorus goes for a Protect, though, not wanting to take any of this damage coming out from the Xerneas on the opposing side. It does go for that Dazzling Gleam, so we'll have to see exactly how much damage this does into the Incineroar. Still a pretty decent chunk of damage. Does activate that Citrus Berry, though. Going to bring the Incineroar back up over half health.
Yeah, so going to be out of range of another one of those Dazzling Gleams, so it's going to be key here of whether that indeed does carry Helping Hand. If it does carry Helping Hand, you just click that and Dazzling Gleam picks up a knockout on both Pokemon on Federico's side of the field at this point. And no Fake Out can happen either thanks to that Indeedee switching and getting up that Psychic Terrain, so a really, really strong position for Daniele here. They don't have Helping Hand, you can still pick up a knockout on either Pokemon you want with the Moonblast, and maybe still get the knockout on the Landorus with the Dazzling Gleam, and if you're not confident with that, you can still go for Follow Me with the Indeedee, but there is that Helping Hands. We're likely going to see a double knockout here.
Yeah, no Protects, obviously. A Dazzling Gleam coming right out. This is why Xerneas can still be so dominant in a format that already has another great fairy type like Zacian. Able to take both of these Pokemon out, put the momentum completely in Daniele's favor, having all 4 of his Pokemon just to Federico's last 2, which is Urshifu and Zacian. Urshifu's not going to want to take a Dazzling Gleam. Like you said, it's not running that Focus Sash, something that, Urshifu commonly ran to, maybe help with its lack of bulk and maybe handle a little bit more, get another set of hits out onto the field. Zacian's Intrepid Sword boosting that attack stat, though. Maybe trying to get a really strong Steel-type move out here. It just depends on what it can handle from the Xerneas.
May not be able to hit the Xerneas at least for a couple of turns because that Indeedee is still on the field, still has access to that Follow Me and can just redirect any of the Behemoth Blades coming out from Zacian at this point. You just go for Dazzling Gleam with the Xerneas. Even if the Urshifu does detect itself like it is doing, you can still just Follow Me the next turn and just keep spamming that Dazzling Gleam button.
Yeah, the Follow Me, like you said, from that Indeedee, so that Zacian's not going to be able to hit this Xerneas. Xerneas, of course, faster, so we'll get that Dazzling Gleam off into the Zacian. Definitely going to be important to see exactly how much damage this does here. Does maybe just over a quarter, so it is going to take a couple of those pretty comfortably, but it does have to get rid of this Indeedee first before it can do any really promising damage onto that Xerneas. Indeedee almost gets knocked out, though, from that one Behemoth Blade, so it is going to be able to get another Follow Me off, and that Xerneas is going to be able to get another Dazzling Gleam onto that, especially onto that Urshifu who isn't going to want to deal with it.
Yeah, that's very important. Being able to survive and redirect another one of the Behemoth Blades away is going to be key in allowing that Xerneas to go for all those Dazzling Gleams. The Urshifu not going to be able to get that double detect, so it is going to drop to that Dazzling Gleam here. And you're just going to put the Zacian into +2 Moonblast KO range at this point. Even if the Indeedee goes down, you've got your Incineroar waiting in the back. You've probably got another Fire-type Pokemon waiting in the back. So pretty much no real way through this Xerneas, supported very well by the Incineroar and the Indeedee here.
Yeah, this is exactly why Xerneas is one of the most dominant Pokemon in the format and has been for so long. Getting Geomancy and being able to steamroll your opponent's team, just immediately putting the game in your favor early on. You know, it's something that if you have the right tools to support Xerneas, it's very, very difficult to stop, you know? Intimidate coming out from the Incineroar onto the Zacian, gonna make Zacian even less strong now after, you know, losing that Intrepid Sword boost to its attack. Definitely, I can see the forfeit possibly coming out here, which makes a lot of sense. There's going to have to be a lot of changes, I think, on Federico's side to maybe combat that Xerneas in a way that's a little bit more effective than he was the first game.
You've got probably the best Xerneas counter that's ever existed at this point on your side of the field, but it was coming in too late at that point. The Xerneas got that Geomancy up and got the Indeedee next to it, so it could always just redirect those Behemoth Blades away. Switching in the Incineroar on Dazzling Gleam meant it was in range of another one of those Helping Hand Dazzling Gleams. So maybe if they would have just sacrificed the Urshifu there, you get the switch into Incineroar, which can't be knocked out by Helping Hand Dazzling Gleam at that point. So maybe you can make something happen at that point. And you do need to get your Zacian into position to be able to land that Behemoth Blade onto the Xerneas. But then you've got some really good support with the Intimidate from the Incineroar. You've got the redirection with the Indeedee. So it's going to be quite a struggle to break through the supports to get to that Xerneas with the Behemoth Blade.
Yeah, I'm interested to see though maybe if there's an Indeedee lead over on the opponent's side of the field, maybe something that, you know, maybe stop a fake out, still get some redirection in case you're assuming that maybe there's an Incineroar lead, but it maybe could just be a change. You have to wonder exactly. I mean, I don't really see any changes being made on the opponent's side of the field. I think all of his Pokemon, we didn't even see, I think, all of them. Maybe we did. I don't exactly remember. I know we saw three.
Just Incineroar and Indeedee that was necessary to support that Xerneas. So, yeah, Daniele was able to hide that fourth Pokemon, which is going to be crucial. You would assume it's another one of those fire types, whether it was that Torkoal or the Entei there, because you do want to be bringing your fire types to deal with the Zacian. But apparently Xerneas is a good enough Zacian counter spam that doesn't gleam without it being hit. So yeah, Federico does need to find a way of breaking through the support. He does need to be able to get that Xerneas. You only managed to land a Surging Strikes into the Xerneas, which wasn't even going to be a 2-hit knockout as well, because it's quite a bulky Xerneas coming out there. So do need to be making some sort of adjustments here to try and break through that support.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely going to have to see what the leads are and what the adjustments might be. Xerneas and Incineroar again, so that is not an adjustment on that side, but I don't think he needed it to be. You know, that lead can still be so powerful. Zacian and Landorus here, though, for the very first start for Federico's side. So something that I really like here, you know, getting that Zacian out early, maybe trying to, you know, even if there may be a fake out from that Incineroar, it still puts a lot of pressure by having that Zacian out first. You know, you can't follow me until maybe the next 2 turns from now if you know, switch into that Indeedee on Daniele's side. But I think it's going to still cause a lot of trouble, I think, for Daniele, knowing now that Federico knows he's got to be really offensive early in the game.
You effectively sacrifice the Intimidate, cancelling out the Intrepid Sword here, so you can do a lot more damage to the Xerneas. But that seems like all the Incineroar wants to do here. Just going to be switching out straight away into that Indeedee to get the redirection onto the field and preserve that Intimidate as well, so that the Zacian won't be doing as much damage here.
Yeah, the Indeedee switching out, getting that Psychic Terrain up, the Protect coming from the Xerneas, which definitely a smart play here, not going for that Geomancy first turn until it can do it safely. The Protect there activated. Landorus going for that Earth Power into the Indeedee slot, going to take it almost all the way down. A critical hit there as well, so a ton of damage onto that Indeedee. A really, really big thing. If only secured that knockout, that would have been a complete game changer for Federico's side.
Yeah, but for Federico, at least, didn't double target the Protect of the Xerneas, maybe expecting the fake out so you get one of them to hit the Xerneas. But now the Zacian can take out this Indeedee that is redirecting with the Follow Me, can still get that Sludge Bomb onto the Xerneas before that Geomancy.
Yeah, Zacian here going for that Behemoth Blade into the Indeedee slot, getting that last little chunk of HP, so not going to have to worry about it for the rest of the game, which is really huge for Federico, but this still will probably allow the Xerneas to go for that Geomancy. Landorus gets that Earth Power off, though, into the Xerneas, does a really good chunk of damage. That Sheer Force is so strong. Geomancy, though, comes out for the Xerneas, so this is going to make it faster, something that Federico is going to really have to prepare for. But if he can, handle a couple of Dazzling Gleams like we saw him in the last match, maybe bring in something that might be able to do, he doesn't really have the redirection from Indeedee, actually, so it makes it really tough, I think, for him moving forward.
Yeah, now Federico can always choose to target the Xerneas if they choose to at this point. Quite surprised to see the Earth Power coming out instead of a Sludge Bomb. You almost always see Sludge Bomb on Landorus, maybe covering for a switch into one of the fire types. And we've got this Entei on the field now that does commonly carry the Choice Scarf, especially when you've got the Sun as well. So we'll have to see if that is the item of choice on the Entei here. If it's not, then the Xerneas can at least knock out the Landorus first, but then the Zacian would be able to move, maybe get the Behemoth Blade to knock out the Xerneas. If the Entei is Choice Scarf, we'll have to see if it's going to be strong enough to pick up the knockout on this Zacian, depending on how bulky the Zacian is, whether it's got Sacred Fire or Flare Blitz. As we saw in the previous game that we featured, Flare Blitz was enough to knock out the Zacian, whereas Sacred Fire almost certainly wouldn't have been. But at least you've got rid of the redirection at this point. Even though the Zacian is back to neutral and can be intimidated again whenever it wants by the Incineroar, you've got the Xerneas into knockout range of a Behemoth Blade here, even if you get intimidated further, maybe even if you get burned by Sacred Fire.
Station goes for a Protect here. They're not going to want to take any damage from that Entei. Landorus also goes for a Protect, so interesting to see here, going for that double Protect, maybe trying to bait out and see exactly what's going to happen here. Dazzling Gleam not going to hit either of these Pokemon, of course, through those Protects. Going to probably see exactly what they're baiting themselves in with a Scarf move, maybe. And I do believe that was the Flare Blitz.
I think that looked like it double targeted both Pokemon there, so maybe it's Snarl. So yeah, it's interesting going for the double Protect there. At least if you do expect that Entei to be choiced, then you can see what it is locking itself into, as it is commonly going to be holding that Choice Scarf item. But now you've lost the option to be able to go for a Protect with one of your Pokemon and switch around. So sacrificing the ability to guarantee the Protect at least to get that information from that Entei.
Incineroar switches out here, though, for Federico's Landorus. Going to get an Intimidate off onto that Entei, which is definitely not going to want to enjoy that as much. The Xerneas here, not going to worry too much about it. Actually, Entei, cannot get Intimidate drops here. Dazzling Gleam comes out from the Xerneas into the Zacian, and the Incineroar, like we saw last time, Incineroar gets that Citrus Berry boost, brings it back up over half, so it is going to need maybe 2 more Dazzling Gleams to get fully knocked out. And then this is the Eruption, I believe, that I missed the last time, yeah. So the Eruption is enough to knock Zacian out, so that is a huge amount of damage. Not going to have to worry about that Zacian getting a Behemoth Blade off into that Xerneas slot anymore, and does a pretty decent chunk still to that Incineroar.
Yeah, very nice chunk. My Spanish failing me there. Seeing the spread move and expecting Snarl, but Eruption makes a lot more sense coming from the Entei here, and it's definitely going to be holding that Choice Scarf as well to be able to get that knockout on the Zacian before it is able to move. And you've still got a huge chunk of damage on the Incineroar. We saw it did over half with the Dazzling Gleam before with the Xerneas, and the Psychic Terrain is still on the field at this point, so you've got 2 Pokemon that are in range of +2 Dazzling Gleam at this point. It doesn't really seem too much that Federico can do at this point. If you try and pivot around, Landorus is going to be taking a +2 Dazzling Gleam. It may just be able to survive, but then it's put into +2 Dazzling Gleam range once again. So I wouldn't be surprised if we just see Dazzling Gleam for the rest of the game.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly what Xerneas is good at. It gets that Geomancy up, and then it goes for those Dazzling Gleams and those Moonblasts. The Detect here going on that Urshifu, so it's not going to take this Dazzling Gleam damage, but this is still going to go into that Landorus, and that is almost enough to knock it out, brings it down to 10 HP. Another Eruption here from the Entei, and that is just probably going to take that final bit of HP away from the Landorus, going to bring that Incineroar back in, maybe trying to time out those Psychic Terrain turns, trying to get that Fake Out, or maybe getting at least 1 more Intimidate off into the, sorry, I meant to say that again, won't be able to get an Intimidate off into the Entei this time, of course, because of Entei's ability.
Yeah, and it's going for those Eruptions as well, so wouldn't even care about the Intimidates at that point. But being able to stall out the Psychic Terrain is quite nice here, because at least you do have a Fake Out and a Surging Strikes into that Xerneas, and because of the Unseen Fist, the Xerneas won't be able to protect from that. So you do have a knockout potential on this Xerneas here, but then you do leave the Entei still going for a full HP Eruption at that point. Into 2 resisted Pokemon, so won't be doing as much damage, but it's still going to be doing a huge chunk of damage regardless. And then the next turn would still be able to go for another one of those full HP Eruptions.
Xerneas actually switching out here, getting rid of those Geomancy boosts, bringing in his own Incineroar and Daniele's side, getting the Intimidate off onto both of these Pokemon who are not really going to enjoy dealing with that, and getting his own Fake Out pressure on the field for the next turn. Fake Out, though, going on to the Incineroar on Daniele's side, so a great switch there, not going to be taking any damage. Eruption once again coming out. This is going to do a little bit to both of these Pokemon, still enough. Getting that damage as you go is really important. Surging Strikes, though, from the Urshifu should be going into that Incineroar slot, which it is, and it's going to do a really good chunk of damage. This Incineroar could be holding a berry, which may be a problem. It may not actually get knocked out from this. It is going to be, I think, a pretty close call. We're gonna have to actually see if this gets the knockout. If it's not able to get, it is getting knocked out, so no Fake Out damage next turn, or Fake Out pressure from Daniele.
Yeah, but a very smart switch out of that Xerneas. He doesn't actually need the Geomancy at all at this point. The Urshifu would definitely be in range of a Moonblast, and probably the Incineroar as well, thanks to the Eruptions as well. Eruption's probably going to be chipping everything down so that they're just in Dazzling Gleam range, even without the +2 boost at this point. So, yeah, very, very smart switch out of the Xerneas. Something that some players don't opt to do. When you've got these Geomancy up, some players opt to just keep your Xerneas in, not sacrifice those boosts at all, but definitely the correct choice for Daniele here. If they'd have left the Xerneas in, it gets knocked out to the Fake Out and the Surging Strikes, and then you've got Entei and Incineroar left against an Urshifu, and that's definitely not the position you want to be in. And a Xerneas taking on the Urshifu is a lot better here.
Yeah, it does take that Aqua Jet pretty comfortably. Another Eruption from this Entei. That Scarf Eruption doing so much damage just consistently over each turn. The Dazzling Gleam here from the Xerneas. This will be enough to knock out both of those Pokemon and take this round for Daniele. And that was a critical hit. I couldn't see exactly on which one of those Pokemon it was, but you know, a great amount of damage here for Daniele. A really strong showing of Xerneas. That Xerneas stayed in both of those games almost every single turn, I think, save for one. So really, really dominant showing of why Xerneas is still such a good Pokemon in this format.
Yeah, and Zacian is supposed to beat the Xerneas, theoretically, but definitely a strong showing of how you are able to defeat those Zacians with a Xerneas team. Really nice play from Daniele there, being able to get that Xerneas set up and knowing when to switch it out as well, even though it had set up. So some very nice plays coming out. There wasn't really too much that Federico could do. As soon as the Xerneas got the Geomancy, most things were at that point in the +2 Dazzling Gleam range. So really, you just got to spam Dazzling Gleam. They tried to position themselves slightly, but in the end, got into a position where the Xerneas didn't even need its boosts anymore, just switched itself out, sacrificed those boosts just so that it could guarantee the win for Daniele.
Yeah, I mean, even knocking that Indeedee out in that second game wasn't enough, really, for Federico to get any real better positioning. You know, I was thinking maybe not having those follow me's, anything like that would be a little bit better in terms of positioning for him, maybe able to take that Xerneas out of the game finally, but he really wasn't able to do a great chunk of damage onto that Xerneas to get it out of the way. Consistently was just getting in his way, just bothering him a little bit too much. Xerneas, of course, Xerneas Incineroar is one of those cores that you see, you know exactly what it does, but you're still sometimes powerless to stop it.
Yeah, it didn't seem like there was too many ways of breaking through that Incineroar and the Xerneas, as well as that Indeedee as well, being able to stop all those fake outs for a few turns, getting that redirection going. So a really nice showing from Daniele here. Is going to secure the win this week for Italy, now going to put them at 5-0 record against Uruguay, so managing to take the week for this week. So we're going to be cutting once again to another short break, and we'll be right back with the next game.